Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good morning. The devotional today will be led by Representative Connor Casey of Montpelier.
Good morning. We've had some eccentric, sometimes even controversial devotionals this year. So out of respect to the speaker, I'm going to try to not get very weird here. That said, I do feel the need to tell you about how I grew up on a mountain that was actually a demonic portal to the Celtic otherworld. Now, I'm not a very religious person. My father was studying to become a priest, and he left the seminary when he met my mother, or the abomination, as my granny called her. But even after this auspicious start, we remained Catholic, because doing otherwise might make people think we were Protestant, and where I came from, that wasn't very good. So my parents weren't terribly devout, but there were certain things I was taught to believe in, and one of those things was fairies. Not the winged Tinkerbell type of things you'd see in cartoons you'd swat away, but a race who William Butler Yeats called too good for hell and too bad for heaven. He said that in Ireland, fairies were not delicate as they were in England. They are not Shakespearean sprites, but powerful beings full of mystery and danger. So as Yeats said, they were outside the typical Christian construct of good and evil. When St. Patrick converted all us heathens, he made sure to sprinkle a bit of paganism into Catholicism, just like a bit of Parmesan cheese, like a bowl of pasta. And that brings me to my story. When I was a boy, 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, I lived in a small village called Carlingford. It was on the Irish Sea in the shadow of a mountain. And it was known throughout Ireland that Carlingford was a veil to the Celtic otherworld. It was very thin in this region, and it was full of portals to the otherworld. You could find them in the deep green of the hawthorn trees, in the quiet stillness of the fairy mounds, in the whisper of the wind that came down from Slieve Foy, the mountain behind us. Now, some in the village would try to capitalize on this, like the charlatan Kevin Woods, who went up the mountain and found a bunch of sheep bones, wrapped them in tattered rags, and said it was the corpse of a leprechaun. This was ridiculous. Everybody knows leprechauns, when they die, just disappear, you know? It's absurd. You know, they don't leave a trace behind. But fairies are real. And we were raised to be careful, to respect their places, to never cut down a fairy tree or disturb their mounds. We didn't need priests or scholars to tell us these things. We knew, because someone who didn't heed these unspoken rules, if they didn't do it, the good people had a way of reminding us. Take the story of Cocker O'Reilly, the uncle of my best friend Barry O'Reilly. Every village in Ireland has its own mythology, but every neighborhood actually has its own mythology too, and this one is from mine. Even today, if you look up at Slieve Foy, the mountain, the great mountain that rises above our town, you'll see a white horse grazing between the ferns. And some say he was once a man too sure of himself, too quick to laugh off the warnings passed down through the generations. Cocker O'Reilly was known for never being wrong, and worse still, he made sure you knew it. So one day, after the pub, a fierce night of drinking, too much in the village, he stumbled up the hill, up the mountain, towards his home. The night was dark, the whiskey was strong, and when nature called, he did the unthinkable. He relieved himself without a second thought. Now, only in the morning did he realize what he had done. The fairy mound was home of a queen and a princess, and it had been desecrated. And though he scoffed at the warnings of his neighbors, the good people had taken note. By the next morning, Cocker O'Reilly was gone. In his place, in his cottage, was a horse. His legs, his arms vanished. His voice, his sharp tongue, reduced to nothing but a terrified neigh. They say the neighbors knocked down the walls to let him out. They say he ran and never returned. And they say to this day, that white horse on Slieve Foy is the last trace of a man who was always right until he was terribly terribly wrong. I grew up hearing stories about this not as entertainment, but as a way of understanding the world. They taught us about pride, respect, about the mysteries we cannot explain. And as Yeats said in his poem, "Come away, old human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand." So I'll leave you with this. Let's not be like Cocker O'Reilly this last week or 2 or 3 of the session. Let's not be so sure of ourselves that we forget to listen, respect, and tread carefully on the sacred places of this world. Otherwise, the State House here might just become a stable full of horses. And to those of you who doubt that my story is true, I promise you it's 100% true, that it's a story. Thanks very much.
Members, we have a bill on the notice calendar requiring referral to a money committee pursuant to House Rule 35A. Senate Bill 122 is an act relating to economic and workforce development affecting the revenue of the state. The bill is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. Members, we received a message from the Senate notifying us that the Senate has refused to concur in the House proposal of amendment on Senate Bill 126, which is an act relating to healthcare payment and delivery system reform, and requested a committee of conference and appointed its members thereto. Pursuant to that action, the chair appoints the following members to serve on the part of the House: the member from Essex, Representative Black; the member from Barrytown, Representative McFawn; and the member from Winooski, Representative Berbecco. Members, we have received requests to read 4 House concurrent resolutions that the House and Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. The first is HCR 130, which is a House concurrent resolution commemorating the bicentennial of the 1824 through 1825 farewell American tour of the Marquis de Lafayette. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas Marie-Joseph Paul Yves Roch Gilbert Dumoutier de Lafayette, best known as the Marquis de Lafayette, was a French aristocrat who audaciously, at 19 years of age, set sail for America and amazingly persuaded Congress to commission him as a major general in the Continental Army. And whereas Lafayette fought bravely in the battles of Brandywine, where he was wounded, and Rhode Island, before returning to France to lobby the French government to increase support for the American cause. And whereas, upon his return to the United States, Lafayette, leading a contingent of American troops, blocked British General Lord Cornwallis's early action during the decisive Battle of Yorktown. And whereas Lafayette long aspired someday to return to the nation whose independence he helped secure. And in 1824, President James Monroe and Congress invited Lafayette to tour the country in celebration of the Revolutionary War's 50th anniversary, which became a 24-state sojourn beginning in New York on August 15, 1824, and concluding in Burlington on June 29, 1825. And whereas Lafayette arrived in Vermont on June 28, 1825, was welcomed at an early morning ceremony in Windsor, journeyed through Heartland to an event in Woodstock, traveled via East Barnard on his way to Royalton, where more official greetings awaited, and continued through Tunbridge to Barry, from where a more elaborate entourage accompanied him to Montpelier, and from the first State House's balcony, he observed a military procession, delivered a speech in the Assembly's chamber, and attended a grand banquet in his honor, and a historic marker now commemorates Lafayette's Montpelier visit. And whereas on June 29, 1825, Lafayette's American tour, after passing through Williston, concluded in Burlington, where the festivities consisted of a large receptions, laying the cornerstone of the University of Vermont's Old Mill building, greetings from Governor Van Ness, and the delivery of the English-fluent Frenchman's carefully written Farewell America speech of appreciation and reflection. And whereas the American Friends of Lafayette has organized a bicentennial recreation of the 19th century tour, following the original route to the day, including all the Vermont stops on June 28th and 29th, 2025, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly commemorates the bicentennial of the 1824-1825 Farewell American Tour of the Marquis de Lafayette, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the American Friends of Lafayette.
Next is HCR 132, which is a House concurrent resolution congratulating the West Rutland High School Golden Horde girls basketball team on winning a fourth consecutive Division IV championship. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas, over the last 4 seasons, the on-court expertise and precision of the Golden Horde has greatly impressed the team's opponents, and whereas, as the Division IV title holder in 2022, 2023, and 2024, West Rutland, with a roster featuring the all-time scorer in Vermont girls high school basketball, was eager to extend this championship streak in 2025, and whereas, in the 2025 championship game, played at the Barrie Auditorium, the top-seeded Golden Horde were matched against the second-ranked Long Trail School Mountain Lions, and whereas the game's only mystery was the exact final score, as West Rutland commanded the scoreboard throughout, expanding a 21-6 halftime lead into a 46-21 victory. And whereas the truly extraordinary Golden Horde basketball mavens were Peyton Guay, Isabella Coombs, Kenna Wright-Chapman, Aubrey Billou, Cameron Williams, Maggie Therian, Haley Raish, Brady Traverse, Isabella Griffith, Myra Rock, Brianna Gallipo, and Emma Haley. And whereas head coach Carl Serrani, assistant coach Matt Serrani, student managers Kylie Duell, Shakira Early, and Sadie McGee, and athletic trainer Zach Royer each contributed to the great 2024-2025 Golden Horde season. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly congratulates the West Rutland High School Golden Horde girls basketball team on winning a 4th consecutive Division IV championship, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the West Rutland High School.
Next is HCR 133, which is a House concurrent resolution congratulating West Rutland High School girls basketball standout Peyton Guay and extending her the best wishes for every future success. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas the prolific basketball career of Peyton Guay has always been focused on her team, the West Rutland High School Golden Horde, and whereas, despite her modesty and team focus, were it not for the presence of this outstanding player, the Golden Horde would never have compiled its amazing 4-year consecutive string of Division IV crowns, 2022 to 2025. And whereas there's no doubt Peyton Guay has written a new page of achievements in the history of Vermont girls high school basketball that will not easily be surpassed. And whereas from the day Peyton Guay first walked onto the hardwood court as a 9th grader, her coaches and teammates knew she possessed an extraordinary talent for playing the game, as she demonstrated a keen ability to score from the field and at the foul line. And whereas her unique leadership, combining exemplary talent with a genuine desire to share the ball with her teammates, contributed to West Rutland's astounding 86-8 win-loss record over the past 4 seasons. And whereas Peyton Guay's personal statistics, averaging 21.3 points per game and scoring 2,279 points, the most ever of any Vermont girls high school basketball player, are outstanding, and her contribution of assists is equally impressive. And whereas the conclusion of her time as a Golden Horde player hardly ends her basketball playing days, as Peyton Guay eagerly anticipates embarking on an exciting new path as a college basketball player in Florida. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly congratulates West Rutland High School girls basketball standout Peyton Guay and extends to her best wishes for every future success. And be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to Peyton Guay.
And finally, HCR 141 is a House concurrent resolution in memory of U.S. Environmental Protection Agency EPA engineer Edward M. Hathaway. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas Ed Hathaway graduated from the Xaverian Brothers High School in Westwood, Massachusetts, and Suffolk University in Boston, Massachusetts, as a business major. And whereas business proved a temporary detour on Ed Hathaway's life path, as he discovered upon moving to the Southwest a deep love of nature, prompting him to return to school and earn a degree in environmental science from Northern Arizona University. And whereas this second degree opened the door for a brilliant 36-year career at the EPA, initially as a manager in the Superfund division, And whereas Ed Hathaway's solid scientific knowledge was only one aspect of his superb public service, as he was an extraordinary facilitator who could bring conflicting parties, be they community groups, state or other federal agencies, to viable solutions when addressing environmental problems. And whereas the EPA valued Ed Hathaway's professional achievements, and he was repeatedly honored with agency awards, most recently Mentor of the Year. And whereas in Vermont, his enduring legacy was as the supervising EPA engineer for 2 Vermont Superfund cleanup projects at the Ely Copper Mine in Vershire and the Elizabeth Mine in Stratford, the latter for which he enabled over $100 million to be directed to this challenging project, even arranging the replacement of roads that heavy truck traffic had damaged. And whereas this truly kind and highly respected official's EPA role was cut short due to his contracting pancreatic cancer, which he fought valiantly until his death on March 7, 2025, at 63 years of age, and his survivors include his wife, Anne Marie Burke, his sons, and his parents. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly extends its sincere condolences to the family of Edward M. Hathaway, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the members of Ed Hathaway's family.
Are there any announcements? Member from Clarendon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have just heard the reading of House Concurrent Resolution 132, honoring the West Rutland Golden Horde girls basketball team on the occasion of their 4 consecutive state Division IV championships. And I have the distinct pleasure of noting that they are in the audience today in the gallery. But I would like to also point out that it doesn't stop just on the basketball court. This core of outstanding student athletes also does well in soccer and is currently 13-0 in this softball season, and they've been in the last 3 state championship games as well in softball, winning 1. So the seniors in this class have compiled 4 state championships in basketball and 1 in softball, with another one pending. And I would like you folks and you, Madam Speaker, to join me in giving a hearty congratulations and a warm welcome to the West Rutland Golden Horde.
Will the guest of the member from Clarendon please rise and be recognized? Member from West Rutland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wore my green suit today for the Golden Horde. And we just heard a resolution read for Peyton Guay and her successes in basketball in her 4 years at West Rutland. Madam Speaker, 1,000 points in a season for a high school player, boys or girls, is a big deal. That was for you, Woody. 2,000 points is almost unheard of. I believe there have been 4 or 5 girls that have scored over 2,000 points in the history of Vermont girls basketball. The former record has stood for nearly 40 years and was 2,115 points. Peyton beat the old record by 164 points by scoring 2,279 points in her career, which is just unbelievable. But please, on behalf of the member from Clarendon and myself, please welcome to the State House Vermont's new all-time leading scorer in girls basketball with 2,279 points, Peyton Guay.
Will the guest of the member from West Rutland please rise and be recognized? Member from Milton.
Madam Speaker, if I can talk right here. Well, in the throes of the Battle of Britain during World War II, Winston Churchill paid tribute to his Royal Air Force pilots with these words: "Never in the field of human conflict has so much been given by so many to so few." Madam Speaker, we are usually not here this late in the month of May, but since we are, I find it important to recognize this particular three-day weekend, more specifically Monday of this coming week, Memorial Day. This week is more than just a day off. Abraham Lincoln said during the Civil War, we are honoring those that have given the last full measure of devotion. In other words, given their life in the conflict of our great country. I think it is important to remember those that paid the supreme sacrifice so the rest of us can continue to sleep peaceably in our beds at night. In our own body, we have in our midst two members that have lost family as a result of service to our country during conflict. Tristan Southworth perished in the Afghanistan theater of war and is the son of the member from Walden. Danny Pincinel lost his battle with indirect wounds from battle and was the husband of the member from Dorset. If there are other family members from members of our body that have perished in combat, I apologize for not knowing that. Madam Speaker, I'd ask that we could take a moment and recognize the supreme sacrifice made by not only Tristan and Danny, but all of those that have given their lives in our nation's conflicts.
Will members and guests please rise for a moment of silence? Member from Berry City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we heard with today's resolution, this year is the 200th anniversary of Lafayette's tour of the United States, including here in Vermont, which for history nerds like myself is very exciting news. And I'm pleased to announce to the Chamber that the Marquis de Lafayette has returned and is joining us in the gallery. Peter Riley as the Marquis de Lafayette, Betty Ann Andrews of the Daughters of the American Revolution, Josh Bluen of Barrie, who, follow me here, is the fourth great-grandson of Ira Day, and Ira Day met the Marquis de Lafayette when he visited Barrie 200 years ago. Tim German, a former member of the House of Representatives and the organizer of Lafayette 200, Amanda Gustin of the Vermont Historic Society, and Martha Allen, friend to all I just mentioned. They are in the card room today, and over the course of the weekend, as we heard in the resolution, there will be events throughout Vermont honoring the return of the Marquis de Lafayette, and I would ask that the Chamber welcome them all.
Will the former member and guest of the member from Berry City please rise and be recognized? Member from Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's perfect that the Marquis de Lafayette, a strong proponent of freedom, justice, and rising for what is correct, not just for what the laws say, is here today because we also have in the gallery members of civil rights organization Migrant Justice who have been working tirelessly to help guarantee the civil rights of all Vermonters, including Vermont dairy worker Jose Edilberto Molina Aguilar, who was ordered released by an immigration judge, and he will soon return home after a month in immigration detention. In his hearing today in Texas Immigration Court, he was granted a bond that will be paid for by the Vermont Freedom Fund, and this was granted in part thanks to the overwhelming community support that Jose received. And I wanted to, please, if you could help me welcome today in the gallery, the balcony, we have Olga, bienvenida, Rachel, Katrina, Abel, Will, Quique, and May. Bienvenidos. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Will the guest of the member from Essex please rise and be recognized? Member from Bennington.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I am inviting you and the members of this chamber on Tuesday to the unveiling of our art project that was done on April 1st. I think you will see that it shows the different viewpoints and textures and colors that this wonderful body put together. We're hoping that you will join us in the card room at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. For those who did actual artwork for the project that is now a very large collage, we would like you to all be signing the back of this project. I have had the distinct pleasure of working with our own, and I know we're not supposed to say a member's name, but our very own Molly Burke, who is an art expert in her own right, and also our beloved Sergeant at Arms Agatha Kessler, and also David Sheets. They have been wonderful to work with as we've put this together. So we hope you'll come and enjoy a little reception and to see the beautiful artwork that many of you put together. Thank you.
Member from Thetford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Recently, we heard a very nice resolution calling out the attention in foreign establishments of Ed Hathaway. There's a lot of people here to hear this resolution. Ed's family members and also many, many people that Ed worked with over the years. I'm going to name them by name because they all deserve recognition here for their work on the Elizabeth Mine. And after I do that, I'm going to provide a little context for Ed's work in the Upper Valley. From here in the gallery are Anne Marie Hathaway, Ed's wife, two sons, Edward and Patrick Hathaway. I hope she's here, Giovanna Peoples from Historic Preservation, and then about a dozen people from Environmental Conservation. Why so many, Madam Speaker, is because each of these people worked hard on the Elizabeth Mine cleanup that I'll talk to about a little bit. And each of them found Ed to be a remarkable, helpful mentor, project director, and each of them and I ended up with a lasting impression and favorable, well beyond favorable impression of working with Ed. He was a remarkable fellow. So in addition to Ed's family, we have John Schmelzer, Matt Chapman, George Desch from DEC, Giovanna Peebles, Historic Preservation, Casey Cathan, DEC, Patricia Copolino, DEC, Graham Bradley, DEC, Kim Cadwell, DEC, Jason Clear, and Tim Ullman and Mary Ellen Chapman, who worked as contractors on the remarkable cleanup at that site and who may be here. And there's a whole lot more online, I believe. Madam Speaker, John Freitag, Steve Wilbanks, and Bob Walker from the local community. A little word about the cleanup. When I was growing up in the Upper Valley, and up until a few years ago, the water in the west branch of the Pompanousek River during heavy rain was bright orange, and sometimes not even with the rain. The water was bright orange, and all the rocks for several miles downstream were also as if painted orange. And that was the landscape into which Ed came to work. So during the work of cleaning up this, somewhere between 40 and 60 acres, depending on how much you want to count, landscape of acid waste tailings, bright orange themselves, Ed came to work. And I can tell you at the beginning of this process, not everyone in the community was in unison that this is what we should be doing, spending this much money. And some people, I think, thought, well, let the river clean it up itself eventually. But during this process of working, Ed worked with all the peoples who were opposed and in favor of and came up with a remarkable solution. And I can tell you, Madam Speaker, I never saw him angry. It was quite remarkable. So with that said, oh, I forgot, So now if you drive down Route 132 from Stratford towards the Union Village Dam, the water's clear, it's clean. The rocks are not orange. They look like they should here in Vermont. And that's a testament to Ed's hard work. And I think we all, and the fish in the aquatic biota there, appreciate his presence here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Will the guest of the member from Thetford please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Castleton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to rise to request that the remarks from the member from Milton be journalized.
The member from Castleton moves that we journalize the remarks of the member from Milton. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have journalized the remarks of the member from Milton. Member from Wolcott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Wow, that pan is really hot. That's a lot of butter. Does that bacon fat actually enhance the nutrition value of those vegetables? Look, your kitchen sink Jenga forgot one pan. These are just a few of the thoughts that come to mind when you watch the Representative Virgins at work in the kitchen. But behind that culinary chaos is creative care and talent, the same quantities that shine through his work here in this building. Whether it's bringing people together, finding common ground, or putting in the long hour no one sees, this representative is described as a deal maker who is nurturing, hardworking, inclusive, and collaborative. Perhaps the only nice part about working late into May is that it gives us a chance to wish my friend and our colleague, the representative from Virgins, a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday, member. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. Members, I have an update for the action calendar today in terms of order of bills. My understanding is that committees are still working on S-127, and that's an act relating to housing and housing development, and House Bill 482, Green Mountain Care Board authority to adjust a hospital's reimbursement rates and to appoint a hospital observer. So we will move those two to the end, and we will start with House Bill 266 and work through. So 266, S69, H209, H222, and we will then see how things are progressing. So with that, members, we will now turn to House Bill 266, which is an act relating to the 340B prescription drug pricing program. The bill passed the Senate with a proposal of amendment that is printed in today's calendar. Member from Winooski.
Madam Speaker, we were the first state to join the union. We are the top producer of maple syrup, but there are some things we just don't want to lead on, like having the most expensive hospital-administered drug prices in the country. But here we are. Vermonters pay on average 600% more than the national average sales price for hospital-administered drugs. That's more than 200% above what residents in the next highest paying state, my homeland, the last frontier, pay. And they pay the most for healthcare overall in this country. Pharmaceutical drugs take a famous journey to get up there. They're delivered by jet, then boat, float planes, snow machine, not snowmobile, and even dog sled in the winter. And yet, after all that, we in Vermont still pay more than even they do for hospital-administered drugs, 200% more. So to refresh you, the 340B federal program that this amendment and the underlying bill are addressing was designed to allow healthcare providers in rural and underserved communities to purchase drugs at a discounted rate from manufacturers and keep the revenue between the average sale price and the discounted wholesale price. So the intent is to sustain providers and ultimately reinvest those dollars to support access to affordable health care. So why are Vermonters paying 600% more than the average national sales price? Hospitals even mark up some items as high as 1,000%, as 5,000% for certain drugs. Often they're life-saving drugs, cancer drugs, drugs for Crohn's disease, diabetes, to make up shortfalls in other areas. And because they're hospital administered, these are drugs that we can't shop around for. There's no competition. There's no market forces influencing the price. These are just administered to a Vermonter sitting in a chair, getting a drug that they can't refuse at a price that they don't get to choose. So let me walk you through just one example of how these drugs get from a discount price to the most expensive in the nation. One Vermont hospital buys a drug called Neulasta. This is commonly used to treat cancer, and they get it at a discounted 340B rate, approximately discounted around 34.5%. The average sale price of Neulasta is currently $1,357 per year. But this Vermont hospital currently charges, are you ready for it? $95,000 per year for this cancer drug after applying their marked up rate. Now, this is a medicine for a person with cancer. That could be your mom, it could be your brother, who we all know should and could be paying $1,357 per year, but instead, they are paying the equivalent of a luxury car. That is price gouging. One of the 8 women sitting near you right now, statistically, will have breast cancer at some point in her life. Let's say a year from now, she's sitting in front of her provider, and she needs to be infused with that same life-saving drug that should cost her and could cost her $1,357. But instead, she and possibly her insurance company are going to pay $95,000. That's $93,643 more that she probably does not have laying around. That's not just a situation for certain Blue Cross Blue Shield covered people. It's for all commercially insured people in Vermont. Unless you have Medicare or Medicaid, that is what you will pay. Whether you buy on the individual exchange, whether you work for a small business, whether you're a teacher, a state employee, if your large employer is self-insured, your employer is paying that. It's regular Vermonters who are paying $95,000, of which over $93,000 is profit that goes to hospitals administering this drug. That, folks, is exploiting the most vulnerable And I think that it is our job to stop this. If you vote yes on this, you could sleep better at night knowing that you reduced healthcare costs this year. When this bill is signed, it will have an impact on upcoming insurance rates. It puts clear, enforceable caps on what hospitals and FQHCs, our community health centers, can charge us, our sisters, our brothers, our mothers, for outpatient prescription drugs, tying those charges to the federal average sales price. This bill closes loopholes for cost shifting. It offers a temporary transition period and includes a process for hospitals to seek relief if these new caps would threaten care, access, or quality. And our certain critical area hospitals are exempt from this law's requirements because of their unique roles. We recognize that. This bill will bridge us through insurance plan year 2026 when we move to reference-based pricing, which will be ushered in with S126. So without this amendment, our insurance premiums are going to rise to $5,000 a month with the impending loss of federal subsidies that are coming our way. While the hospitals and the health network keep tremendous reserves of our money, of your constituents' money on hand, profiting from that interest that's sitting in the bank, while patients struggle to pay, or they're going without health insurance and delaying healthcare, essential healthcare. I want to note one thing that's very, very important about this bill and the amendment. This bill came to us originally from the hospitals themselves. H266 at its core allows hospitals and community health centers to contract with whatever pharmacy they desire so that they can fully benefit from the federal 340B drug discount program and pass those cost savings on to Vermonters. Even with this pricing cap, the amendment will help your local hospital save money. It just stops them from making massive profit off your sick constituents, friends, and family. This amendment will stop that. If we had passed this measure a year ago, Blue Cross Blue Shield would be asking for a 19% rate increase this year instead of 23%. That translates to direct savings for every Vermonter paying premiums, whether you're an individual or a small business owner. So this isn't just policy, this is our wallets. It's every property tax bill. This is the part I really, really want people to hear. This amendment is not about putting hospitals out of business. It's not about forcing them to cut services. None of us want to do that. In fact, there's an explicit exemption in this amendment to prevent it and to protect our hospitals and to protect people who need those services. If a hospital can show the Green Mountain Care Board that the 120 or 130 above average sales price cap that this amendment introduces is hurting access to care or the quality of care that we want our constituents to have, they can appeal for an increased rate in other service lines. The board is here to keep hospitals open, to protect rural areas, and to make sure that care for Vermonters is sustainable. And so are we. Your Committee on Healthcare has taken testimony on financial data demonstrating that hospitals can safely do this without risking insolvency. According to the Vermont Association of Hospitals and Health Systems, Kaiser Family Foundation, and an S&P rubric, hospitals with more than 100 to 110 days cash on hand have adequate days cash on hand. 150 to 160 is strong, and 200 and over is very strong or extremely strong. I'm going to share some updated numbers of days cash on hand this week of some of our hospitals here in Vermont. Brattleboro Memorial Hospital has 100 days cash on hand. That's adequate. Mount Ascutney has 220. That's very strong. And they're part of a larger Dartmouth Health network, so that gives them access to more. Northwestern Medical Center has 256 days cash on hand. That is very strong. Now, what this means is they could not pay anything, or they could not collect anything for 256 days, and they would still run operations soundly. Porter Medical Center, 78 days cash on hand. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but as part of the UVM Health Network, they have access to about $280 million in unrestricted assets. Rutland Regional Medical Center has 243 days cash on hand. And finally, UVM-MC, 136 days cash on hand. That's strong. They also have access, again, to about $280 million in unrestricted assets. Remember, these hospitals are collecting this money. It is sitting as an investment, which is collecting interest. They're collecting that money from patients for life-saving drugs. Our money becomes an investment, becomes more money as it collects interest, which sits with these hospitals. I'd like to do a quick walkthrough of the amendment now. Section A adds the price cap. If you'd like to follow along, this is printed in the House calendar today. It begins on page 3601. Section A adds the price cap and frequency of updating the ASP, which is done twice annually. It also prohibits cost shifting, allows a hospital to show the care board that the cap harms access, quality, or rural care, and may propose to increase commercial reimbursement rates for other services, and the board must consider those impacts. Non-network critical area hospitals are exempt from these requirements. In Part B, it's noted the remainder of 2025, a higher cap applies. So hospitals cannot charge health insurers more than 130% of ASP for drugs that were above 120% ASP as of April 1st, 2025. So for drugs already at or below 120% of ASP, hospitals can't increase the markup above the April 2025 percentage. Now this could be kind of confusing, but it's due to the current structure of contracts that hospitals have. If we began with a 120% rate, what it would do is it would cause a less than 120% reimbursement rate right now. So we're starting with the higher ones to equalize it to actually turn out to 120% just due to the current structure of the contract. And finally, in Part B, as in Section A, critical access hospitals not affiliated with a network are exempt from these provisions. So this amendment at its heart is about fairness for Vermonters who need affordable access to medicine to stay alive, to manage chronic illnesses, to care for our families, and to keep working in our communities. Now, we're all here to improve this state. We're all here in this room to do that. And right now, a lot of us are here to focus on improving affordability. This should be an easy one. I urge your support for this bill as amended because it gets us a fair price for our necessary medications. And it stops entities from profiting off of sick Vermonters. The committee approved this amendment, or voted on the amendment, 1100.
So the question, the member from Winooski moves that the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto. Are you ready for the question? Member from Chittenden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I inquire of the reporter of the amendment?
The member from Winooski is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, as you know, I live in the Rutland region. The Rutland Hospital is the primary health care facility for our area. I understand that under this amendment, they will lose approximately $16 million a year. Madam Speaker, has the committee taken any testimony as to what this amendment will do to services at some of our regional healthcare facilities?
We did take testimony from the Vermont Association of Hospitals and Health Networks.
And Madam Speaker, if I may further inquire, what was their answer in terms of reduction in potential reduction in services?
I'm going to yield to the member from Essex.
The member from Winooski yields to the member from Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Testimony we received from the Vermont Association of Hospital and Health Systems did have concerns, and they did indicate that they felt as though possibly they would have to reduce services, and any hospital that feels as though that this is fiscally impacting them to the point where they have to reduce services or quality of care, they may appeal to the Green Mountain Care Board at any time and ask for an increase in revenue that they're able to generate from other service lines. And the member from Chittenden indicated Rutland Regional Hospital. I just want to note that we took testimony specifically from Rutland Regional Medical Center when we originally passed this bill, and Rutland Regional indicated that they have been losing over $8 million a year due to the contract manufacturers limiting the contract pharmacies. And $8 million a year in their 2024 budget request to the Green Mountain Care Board, they asked for a budget increase of 2%, and 2% of that was strictly because of the lost revenue that they had not been getting under the 340B program. It's important to remember this underlying bill does away with the restriction on contract pharmacies, and Rutland Regional and all other 340B hospitals will be able to recapture the lost revenue from drug manufacturers.
Madam Speaker, so trying to follow the response in the testimony, I heard, and I'm familiar with the underlying bill. In fact, had talked to the hospital's pharmacy director early on about the importance of the 340B, which a number of states have adopted to help our healthcare providers. However, I heard an $8 million savings, and now I'm hearing a $16 million lost revenue. It still doesn't equate. Madam, if there can be some further clarification, but right now, I'm given the impression from what I have learned is that this is going to detrimentally affect what our regional medical facility can offer. And I know healthcare is an issue. I voted I don't know when it was, yesterday, the day before, on S-126, because we have to do something. But I'm just afraid we're going too far with this amendment and not the bill that we originally passed a few months ago. Madam Speaker, is there any further clarification that would help me?
I don't think I have any further clarification on that, other than since this amendment has been proposed, the Committee on Healthcare has received neither verbal or written testimony from Rutland Regional, so I certainly cannot speak to $16 million. That is not a number I have heard from anyone at Rutland Regional Hospital.
Okay, thank you, member. Madam Speaker, I have some serious concerns. I know there's a balancing act of what we need to do to bring down healthcare costs, and I think this body has tried very hard, and I appreciate the work of the Healthcare Committee for taking on these issues. However, I think this may be one going too far that's going to negatively impact even more some of our regional medical facilities, and I will be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
Member for Morristown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Permit me briefly to share my story, and perhaps it will help as we deliberate on this issue. When I learned I had inoperable stage 4 cancer, I had many of the anxieties perhaps anyone else would have. Those anxieties about my health shifted quickly when I learned from my hospital that the medicine I would be on would cost $30,000 a month, and my insurance would not cover it. It was not hard math for me to divide $30,000 into the Yakavoni Treasury and realize those trips I might have had planned for retirement wouldn't be happening, but maybe somehow I'd still be around to work on the honey-do list. Something good happened, however. Good may be the wrong way to phrase this, but shortly after starting my regimen of infusions, I had a stroke. It was determined that the stroke was a reaction to the medicine I was on. The new medicine prescribed for me was covered by my insurance. Now, some 2 years, a month, and 3 weeks, but who's counting, I'm in remission. I did not stop to think what I might be doing to insurance companies, et cetera, when this happened. I was just delighted that things were working. I understand, having worked in healthcare for most of my career, even worked for the Vermont Hospital Association proudly, I understand the intricacies with all these cost relationships. But the cost we extract from families who go through similar situations can cause what I call toxic stress. It can be life-changing. Too many people go through this, and anything we can do, in my opinion, to help abate that, to help suppress the challenges that so many face, are surely worth it. I was very pleased when I saw the bill that there was an exit ramp for our hospitals, a way for them to appeal this to get assistance. That to me seems smart. And the bill seems smart to me also. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto? Member from Bristol.
Madam Speaker, our healthcare system, our so-called healthcare system, is on the verge of collapse. And the stress that the system is putting on all of Vermonters and businesses is intolerable. In addition, we and the Green Mountain Care Board want hospitals to succeed, but we will not if we don't immediately address these outrageous costs. And both of those things can be true. We are, with H266, S126, H482, are transforming our healthcare system and trying to make it more of a healthcare system than it currently is. But those are mid and longer term solutions. This bill provides an immediate relief to the system by addressing these exorbitant costs. We heard from the Green Mountain Care Board, the chair, who is very, very familiar with hospital budgets. He reviewed with us the reserves, Madam Speaker, that these hospitals have. Reserves that are designed to be used in moments just like this. And we heard him say that hospitals would not need to cut services, and I've heard some hospitals saying they're going to have to cut staff. There's enough money in the system in this immediate short term to address this issue and lower the cost of these medications and lower the increase that Blue Cross Blue Shield is asking for directly because of the high cost of these medications. This is one of the few times in our Jenga-like healthcare system that we can provide immediate relief while protecting all of the hospitals. But what we're asking to do is to finally start moving towards looking at our healthcare system as an actual system instead of individual entities and hospitals competing for resources. That's what we're asking to do. It's painful, it's hard, but it's better that we do it and we take charge and we lead the change than to just have it collapse and have everybody lose. We need to stop exploiting patients and taxpayers. We need to stop paying for hospital marketing and consultants while we have our own highly skilled administrators at our hospitals that can do this work. We need to stop paying exorbitant executive pay in hospitals and networks. There's some money there. All the while, we're threatening to cut patient services and jacking up prices. We also heard from the chair of the Green Mountain Care Board about how money is moved around in the system. And it's not usually to the benefit of the patient. In fact, it's not. It's not usually to the benefit of the taxpayer. It's not. When does it stop? We have a chance now to help turn this ship, prevent collapse, and help make this stop.
The question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto? Member from Putney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just heard a powerful personal story from the member from Morristown. And I'm glad he's here to be able to tell that story. We also just heard that it seems like it's price gouging that allows hospitals to balance their budgets. And without price gouging, they're going to have to cut services. If that isn't an indictment of this system, I don't know what is. As I've been following the reports on what's happening between hospitals, insurance companies in Vermont, my fear is the dominoes are lining up. And a lack of leadership is lining up those dominoes. So I'm glad, Madam Speaker, you're providing leadership and your committee is providing leadership to address these dominoes before they start falling. We have some bigger problems, and my fear is all the talk about education and housing will be a secondary headline if we see insurance companies become totally insolvent, if we see hospitals closing. And I'm glad to be able to vote to start to do something and provide the leadership that's lacking otherwise.
Member from Cabot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I inquire of the presenter?
The member from Winooski is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I'm curious to know if the committee received testimony or had communication with the Attorney General's office.
I'm going to yield to the member from Essex.
The member from Winooski yields to the member from Essex.
No, I do not believe we heard from the Attorney General's office.
Madam Speaker, I'm new to doing something beside farming, but is this something in the arena that the Attorney General would normally address as a, and seeing that it seems like price gouging is taking place, and I'm just curious if that's a job for our Attorney General's office, and if that's so, is that something that your committee would look into communicating to them about this issue?
This is not a job that would go to the Attorney General's office. Statutorily, the Green Mountain Care Board regulates hospitals, and it falls in their purview to regulate hospitals and pricing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So it sounds like, I mean, from what I understand about the role of the Attorney General, they would, if it wasn't for the Green Mountain Care Board, then they would be the ones regulating the hospitals. Is that correct?
Yes, the Green Mountain Care Board regulates hospitals.
So if that's the case, then has there been conversations with the Green Mountain Care Board in terms of doing their due diligence to address the price gouging without having to create new legislation?
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I'm not sure I heard the question. I wasn't able to hear.
I'm wondering if conversations have been had with the Green Mountain Care Board to make sure that they are doing their due diligence in their role to prevent price gouging.
We take extensive testimony from the Green Mountain Care Board on many subjects. And as the member from Bristol pointed out, there are multiple bills that your Committee on Healthcare has been working on this year, all addressing issues such as this. I did want to point out that the provisions in this bill and in this amendment only are for about a year and a half. We have set these caps for a year and a half. If you recall, in S-126, which is a bill that passed out of this body, I think it was Thursday or Wednesday, in that we have tasked the Green Mountain Care Board with reference-based pricing, and that is to be completed by 2027. The cap in this amendment is intended to get us until 2027, when the Green Mountain Care Board will have carefully designed a system of reference-based pricing which will address this.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in support of what your committee is doing with this bill and others. I just fire lights inside me when I hear the excessive price gouging that I'm hearing about, and I just want to make sure our state is using every tool it has in the toolbox. Having over 200 days worth of cash reserves seems like it's in line with the national average, so I just want to make sure that as a small state that there isn't a big bully in the room taking advantage of us. So thank you for the work you're doing, and I just hope that we continue to use all the tools that we have to make sure this state stays affordable and small young families like myself don't decide to leave because of higher and higher costs of living here. So thanks.
Member from Stowe.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I rise in support of H266. I appreciate the committee and those others who have supported it. I also rise in full disclosure. I've had a lot of hospital time. I have never had prescription drug coverage. I am fortunate to be of an age where Medicare pays 80%, but I do rely on an outside firm in Vermont, Blue Cross Blue Shield Vermont, to cover additional costs. And those costs are rising, and I still do not have prescription coverage. And a constituent of mine, my community, reached out to me yesterday urging support of this bill, and I'm standing for them and all the others, particularly the vulnerability of Vermonters who are really on a brink of possibly losing our only supplemental provider of insurance. So I want to thank the committee, the reporter, and all those of you who are behind us, and I would urge the body's support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal amendment with further amendment thereto? Are you ready for the question? Member from Dover.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I interrogate the reporter of the bill?
Member from Winooski is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I am looking at the testimony from the Green Mountain Care Board, I think from yesterday or this week, on cash on hand. And I just want to make sure I understand if the calculations around what is appropriate for cash on hand in Vermont have included any projections for what we may see federally.
Can you clarify your question? Madam Speaker, I didn't understand. Are you asking for projections of what we see federally?
So, Madam Speaker, there are recommended amounts of cash on hand, I am understanding, and I want to make sure that I understand if those recommendations factor in possible dramatic cuts in funding from the federal government, which we're pretty reliant on.
The numbers I cited in the bill report were not recommended numbers of days cash on hand. I was citing days cash on hand that are sort of, they're categories from the S&P standard rubric, as well as Kaiser Family Foundation, and Voss also has cited them in their testimony to us. Categories ranging from extremely strong to highly vulnerable. Are those what you're asking about?
Madam Speaker, I believe the cash on hand data that we've been provided is to help us kind of understand fiscal health of the hospitals and their ability to navigate some of these changes that we are seeing with all of these bills. And I just want to make sure that if that is the case, if that's how we're to understand that data that was presented, that I understand if it factors in potential loss of federal funds from what we're seeing right now, which are pretty sizable.
I'm going to yield to the member from Essex.
The member from Winooski yields to the member from Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, they would not include potential loss of federal funds. I think the key word is potential, because there is no clarity at this point of what anyone is facing in amounts of loss of federal funds.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I understand that answer. Can the chair explain what mechanisms or thinking, has there been any thinking about how to adapt this or what will happen if there are significant federal cuts?
No, we have not.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have been here over a decade and have watched us kick this can down the road for a long time. And I want to echo the sentiments of others on the leadership that you and the committee are providing this year. We're at a place now where we have to make incredibly difficult decisions. But this final answer is very concerning to me. And I think we should have, there should be an answer to that question. How will we, what is our plan? A federal budget has just been passed, or passed from one body to the other with pretty significant cuts. I mean, I think we have to have some plan. I'm going to vote for this, Madam Speaker, reluctantly, but I think we have to get that answer forward for ourselves pretty quickly here.
Member from Fairfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't planning on speaking today, so excuse me. Our local hospital had asked our delegation to vote no. They have very serious concerns about the funding that they're going to lose. I know that the issue of cash on hand and gouging and other things have come up, and we've met with them continuously over the last several years, as long as I've been here. And the story is usually pretty much the same. Our hospital is among the lowest Vermont hospitals, increases in Vermont hospitals. They usually charge the least. They have issues with Green Mountain Care, and I know they're not the only ones because we met with administrators from other hospitals that the idea that they can just simply go to the GMCB and ask is a little harder than it may be presented. So they're continuously told that they can't have the rate increases that they need, even though they're the lowest cost in the state, lowest increases in the state. And they're continuously tapping into their cash on hand to cover the losses. Excuse me, because I don't have my glasses because I didn't plan on speaking, so I'm trying to pull this out. They're surviving through. They told us this a couple times over the last couple years. Let's see if this works. They're not strong, but thank you. Anyway, they've been surviving on their stock market and spending a third of their cash days cash on hand to cover losses. That's not sustainable. I know that's not sustainable. And, we can't go back and fix the past. And this is something that really frustrates me about government is I am not one to hold the insurance companies innocent. We as citizens have a role. Hospitals certainly do, healthcare, but we do too. The problem with healthcare in Vermont and some states is partially created by our decisions in the past, where we only have a couple insurance companies that deal with Vermont. because we made it hard for them to deal, and they just said, I'll go somewhere else. Our hospital asked us to say no, especially to the amendment. They were in support of a clean version of the bill without the amendment and without a Senate amendment, but that's where we stand. Thank you.
The question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto? Member from Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I'm glad this subject is being brought up. Neulasta is a colony-stimulating factor drug. It is used post-chemotherapy for drugs that do attack the immune system. Puts the white blood cells in distress. So my question, I would like to interrogate the presenter of the bill.
The member from Winooski is interrogated.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Was there any investigation or testimony given about the administration of this drug to a patient?
I'm going to yield to the member from Essex.
Member from Winooski yields to the member from Essex.
I'm not sure we got detailed step-by-step administration of this particular drug, although I believe it's given via an infusion.
Well, let me clarify that for you. It is not an IV drug. It can be administered sub-Q like heparin and like insulin.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Member from Burlington, what is your point
The
of
member
order?
asked a question that he knew the answer to, and I would like to remind us that we're not supposed to ask a question and then answer it ourselves.
Madam Speaker?
Members, one second. Yeah, right. Member from Burlington, I find your point of order not well taken, although I understand what you're trying to do. The member asked about discussion, which is the difference. So you may continue, member from Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A significant cost is incurred by patients when they have drugs administered IV in a hospital. That is not necessary for this drug. Second question I have, in the investigation of costs, was the present acquisition cost of Neulasta compared to the hoped for cost of Neulasta on a 340B program? What is the savings, in other words?
Actually, no one actually knows the savings because the savings from the 340B is given in aggregate, not on a micro level of each individual drug, which is also a really important part of this bill, which is there is a reporting section that hospitals will provide the acquisition costs of their 340B drugs and their, their savings, I guess, and also what the savings are used for.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are many programs out there sponsored by manufacturers based upon the financial eligibility of patients, where they inquired of savings that are available.
I apologize. I'm sorry, could the member repeat the question?
Well, let me rephrase it. Neulasta is a brand name that is manufactured by Amgen. There are biosimilar drugs out there that are equal in efficacy of Neulasta, just a minor molecular manipulation of the chemical formula. So my question is, were those avenues explored through Blue Cross or Blue Shield, the payers? or the hospital pharmacies. This does not have to be dispensed by a hospital. Patients can give this to themselves at home.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Member from
It's a point
Burlington,
of
what is your
inquiry.
point of order?
It's a point of inquiry. I'm just wondering whether this is, this questioning is about the underlying bill or the amendment.
Can I see the members at the podium, please? The House will stand at recess. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? I had misheard the member from Burlington. It was not a point of order, it was a point of inquiry. So with that, the debate may continue. Member from Morgan, member from Essex, you have the floor if you so choose to continue.
Given the information we've just received, I think this bill needs more exploration on methodologies. And I'll rest my case there. Thank you.
So the question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto? Member from Essex Junction.
Madam Speaker, I want to take a couple minutes and address a couple things. One specifically from the member from Dover, who asked if the Healthcare Committee was hearing anything about what could impact us from the federal level. Specific to this bill, the chair was accurate in that no, we have not. We took specific to this. But generally, I want to update the body, since the question was posed, that conversations have been happening all year. There is a weekly federal working group that meets with stakeholders that Chair Black attends, and sometimes myself. They are sharing information. It includes pretty much anyone you can think of that's related to our healthcare system. They are sharing information on a daily and weekly basis about what might be coming. Within the body, we also have the House Appropriations Committee, who has been hearing testimony from the administration, and they have been working with Legislative Counsel and JFO as well. So we are staying as up to date as possible on what might be coming federally. Up until really late, I guess it was last night or the night before, there were too many potential possibilities of what the federal government could be doing that would impact Vermont for us to really have a plan. However, things are becoming clearer, and I will say the Department of DEVA, Department of Vermont Health Access, just reached out to leadership to express some concerns of what might be happening. And so I anticipate that meetings will pick up and continue through the off session, so that we can be prepared. I do know the administration has been working hard to look at our specifically Medicaid program, because that will be the biggest target, to see what we'll need to do. But again, up until just this week, and really even now that we might have one chamber that has passed a bill, we don't know what the final results will be. It is too early to really have a plan. But I want to assure the body that we are taking this very, very seriously. And I'm always happy to answer questions, as is anyone in the Healthcare Committee. I also want to comment, Madam Speaker, specific to this bill. Our hospitals have dedicated employees who do amazing work to heal Vermonters. They work in a difficult environment, and the hospital administrators have a hard job keeping their hospitals functioning in the difficult state and federal environment that we are in. We need our hospitals in Vermont. They are a vital part of our communities, and that is why the Healthcare Committee, along with stakeholders, have been working for many sessions, and especially this year, to build a sustainable, affordable system for Vermonters and our hospitals. We also have to keep in mind our small businesses are struggling and our schools are struggling. This bill, H266, tries to put forward a process that can happen immediately to help our small businesses and our schools and provide our hospitals the ability to work with their regulator on how to best do it for their hospital. I encourage the body to support this work by voting yes.
The question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto? Are you ready for the question? If so, member from Newport City.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the amendment, and I signed on to it. And I'd like just to respond to a comment that was made earlier about hospitals gouging or taking advantage of its patients. I recognize that hospitals rely on these 340B funds for their day-to-day operations. They need these monies. Unfortunately, this is the system that we have created, not just here in Vermont, but throughout our nation. I believe that our hospitals, as the member just recently said, are caring institutions, not just for their patients, but also for their communities. This is the system that we have, and I'm hopeful that the changes that we make within our healthcare committee and this body are for the good of our healthcare system in Vermont, and I hope that the body will support this bill. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Member from Dover.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the member from Essex Junction, and I want to thank you for your weekly emails from your office, keeping us apprised of education reform and others. And I would just like to ask, Madam Speaker, that we keep all members apprised of these really big pivotal reform efforts that could be so deeply impacted during the summer and fall session. Those communications have been appreciated. I hope they will continue, particularly on healthcare and education through the summer and fall. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have concurred in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto. Now we'll turn to Senate Bill 69, which is an act relating to age-appropriate design code. The bill was referred to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, which recommends that the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as printed in the calendar. The member from Milton, Representative Miklas, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S69, an act relating to age-appropriate design code.
Member from Milton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak to one of our most solemn responsibilities as public servants, safeguarding those who are least able to safeguard themselves, our children. The Vermont Age-Appropriate Design Code Act is a thoughtful and proactive measure to ensure that the digital world our children inhabit is one that respects their privacy, prioritizes their well-being, and minimizes harm. Let me be clear. This bill does not ban content. It does not censor speech. It does not criminalize expression. What it does do is place reasonable guardrails around how digital products and services interact with children, particularly when it comes to the collection and use of their personal information. Children today are growing up in a world where their behaviors are observed, their preferences recorded, and their interactions analyzed, often in ways they don't fully understand and cannot meaningfully consent to. These data practices are frequently designed to maximize engagement, not necessarily to support healthy development. We are not suggesting bad intent. Many platforms offer remarkable tools for learning, creativity, and connection. But without clear standards, even well-meaning companies can fall into patterns that unintentionally exploit children's natural vulnerabilities. This bill seeks to address common design features like infinite scroll, late-night push notifications, and complex privacy settings that can confuse or manipulate younger users. It aims to prevent children from being nudged into oversharing, overconsuming, or losing sleep due to addictive design. The stakes are high. We are seeing rising rates of anxiety, sleep disruption, and body image concerns among children and teens. We owe it to them and to their families to make sure we are not passive bystanders to a system that can deepen those harms. And with that, here is an overview of the bill. If you would like to follow along, it is on page 3604 of the House Journal. The first one I will talk about is a covered business, which refers to a company that conducts business in Vermont, develops or provides online products or services reasonably likely to be accessed by children, and meets one of the following thresholds. Has an annual gross income revenue of over $25 million, buys, sells, or shares the personal information of at least 50,000 children, or derives more than 50% of its revenue from selling personal information. The second definition I'll cover is reasonably likely to be accessed. This applies to products or services that are directly targeted to children or have a user base in which at least 2% are between the ages of 2 and 17. This can be determined through internal company research, audience composition evidence, or if the business knew or should have known its audience included children. Third one is the social media platform, defined as a service that allows users to create profiles or accounts, enables them to post content and interact with others, and is designed for or primarily used for social interaction. Moving on to section 2449B, this includes certain entities from the bill's requirements, including government agencies, HIPAA-covered entities, public health and federally compliant research activities, journalism entities as defined in 12 VSA 1615, and financial institutions governed by the Graham-Lynch-Bliley Act. Section 2449C covers the entity's duties to minors to ensure that their services do not cause emotional distress, encourage compulsive use, or discriminate based on identity factors such as race, gender, or sexual orientation. Importantly, this section does not require businesses to monitor or restrict the type of media a minor chooses to access. Section 2449D requires a covered business to set a child's account to the highest possible level of privacy by default, prevent unknown adults from collecting the child or accessing the child's data, and refrain from sending push notifications to a covered minor. Section 2449E requires a business to disclose their privacy policies and terms of service and the purposes behind their algorithmic recommendation systems. Section 2449F prohibits a covered business from collecting or sharing a child's personal data except to deliver a service explicitly requested by the child, using a child's personal data to recommend media unless the child specifically requests it. It also requires a clear signal to inform a child when their activity is being monitored, even by the parent. And finally, directs the Attorney General to adopt rules prohibiting platform design practices that could lead to compulsive use. Section 2449G sets standards but does not require age verification, which states the method must collect only the minimum necessary data. Personal data collected for age determination must be deleted once age is confirmed, and the Attorney General will be tasked with issuing guidance on appropriate age assurance methods. Let me say again, this does not require them to use age verification. It only provides guidance if they choose to use age verification. Section 2449H authorizes the Attorney General to conduct civil investigations into potential violations under the Vermont Consumer Protection Act. It also allows them to adopt rules to support investigation and enforcement actions. The final provisions of the bill clarify that it does not override Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, does not prevent minors from deliberately accessing or searching for content, is intended solely to protect minors, and must not be used to justify any discrimination of any kind. The bill is set to take effect on July 1st, 2027, and the Attorney General may begin adopting rules starting July 1st, 2025. Madam Speaker, your committee heard testimony from Technology and Privacy Professor of Law from Seton Hall University School of Law, Director of State and Federal Affairs from Minette Choice and from Design It For Us, the Attorney General and his office, Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs from the Attorney General's Office, the Executive Director of Fair Play, the Research Technologists Anxious Generation, Director, State and Local Government Relations of the Chamber of Progress, Social Media Victims, an attorney from Social Media Victims Law Center, the Associate Professor of Pediatrics from the University of Michigan Medical School, the General Pediatrician from the American Academy of Pediatrics and Vermont Medical Society, the Office of Legislative Counsel, and the Computer and Communications Industry Association. Madam Speaker, after thorough review and testimony, the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development found S69 favorable by a vote of 10-0-1. We respectfully request the support of the body.
The question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Member from Castleton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I rise to express my concerns with Senate Bill 69, a well-intentioned but fundamentally flawed piece of legislation that promises protection but delivers unprecedented burdens and infringements on constitutional freedoms. First, let's recognize clearly what Senate Bill 69 proposes. And I quote, age-appropriate design code, end quote, for online platforms accessed by minors. On its face, this objective seems commendable. Yet as we delve deeper, it becomes abundantly clear that the bill would enact overly broad and excessively burdensome regulations that could severely impact Vermont businesses. By significantly broadening the scope of what constitutes a covered person, this bill places onerous requirements on small and medium-sized Vermont businesses. The House's removal of a crucial Senate exclusions, such as thresholds that provided relief for businesses processing fewer than 50,000 individuals' data, effectively casts an excessively wide net, ensnaring countless businesses that neither intended nor expected to fall under such restrictive guidelines. Moreover, the Senate's carefully crafted exclusions for businesses, primarily offering news, sports, entertainment, interactive video games, and electronic commerce, were also removed by the House. By doing this, the House version dangerously expands what constitutes a social media platform, inadvertently subjecting even more businesses to stringent regulations and creating potential barriers for services like video games, possibly restricting access for minors and raising serious implementation questions. This expansive approach will stifle innovation, burden businesses with costly compliance requirements, and disproportionately impact startups and local enterprises, potentially forcing them out of the market or out of the state entirely. But beyond the crippling economic implications, Senate Bill 69 presents grave constitutional concerns. As highlighted by expert analysis from NetChoice, similar laws elsewhere, particularly California's analogous statute, have been repeatedly struck down by federal courts due to clear violations of the First Amendment. Indeed, this legislation would directly infringe upon the protected speech rights of both users and platforms. By imposing vague content-based restrictions, it subjects Vermont to inevitable legal challenges and expensive litigation, Madam Speaker. The bill's provisions around algorithmic recommendation systems severely limit the editorial freedom of online platforms, effectively dictating the type and manner of content that can be presented or prioritized. This direct governmental interference in editorial discretion is unconstitutional and has been consistently invalidated by federal courts across our nation. Moreover, the legislation is riddled with unconstitutionally vague terms, such as, and I quote, reasonably foreseeable emotional distress, end quote, and, quote, compulsive use, end quote, which fail to provide clear guidance to businesses. This vagueness inevitably chills speech, forcing companies to self-censor and to avoid harsh penalties. Equally alarming, Senate Bill 69's age assurance requirements introduce severe barriers to constitutionally protected speech. They demand that businesses adopt intrusive age verification systems subject to standards set by our Attorney General. History shows us, Madam Speaker, that courts have uniformly rejected these types of regulations due to their inherent overreach and constitutional infirmity. Additionally, Senate Bill 69 introduces a private right of action under Title IX, specifically referencing Section 2453 and subjecting businesses liability under Section 2461's private right of action, or as we know it colloquially here in the body, the PRA. While it is not explicitly spelled out in this legislation as clearly as we have seen it in other bills, this body has reviewed, it is there all the same. This provision further exposes businesses to costly litigation, compounding the already heavy compliance burdens and creating additional financial risks for businesses operating right here in Vermont. Let me also address the letter of support from the special interest group, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, or EPIC, which was circulated to the body earlier this morning. The letter claims that Senate Bill 69 does not infringe upon constitutional rights. EPIC argues that the bill is content neutral, non-restrictive of editorial discretion, and uses constitutional age assurance methods. However, this optimistic interpretation significantly underestimates the practical implementation challenges businesses will face. EPIC's dismissal of legitimate First Amendment concerns, including the restrictions on editorial decisions inherent in regulating algorithmic recommendation systems, fails to address the nuanced judicial interpretations consistently upholding speech rights. Furthermore, EPIC's comparison to other regulatory frameworks, such as COPA or HIPAA, oversimplifies the unique burdens that Senate Bill 69 places on Vermont businesses. We must acknowledge the responsibility we have to protect minors online, but Senate Bill 69 is not the answer. It is overly broad, deeply flawed, constitutionally problematic, and economically detrimental. Before moving forward, we need answers to critical questions. How will Vermont businesses practically and financially comply with these expensive requirements? What are the estimated costs to both businesses and the state for inevitable litigation? And why has the House chosen to significantly broaden the scope beyond what the Senate carefully constructed? I urge the House to reject Senate Bill 69, safeguarding both our local businesses and our constitutional freedoms. Vermont, quite frankly, deserves better. Madam Speaker, I would ask that when the roll is taken, it be taken by roll. Thank you.
The member from Castleton requests that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll. Is the member sustained? The member is sustained. The question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Member from Bradford.
Madam Speaker, opponents will claim that S69 targets websites likely to be accessed by minors, thus discriminating based on content and triggering strict scrutiny, which it cannot survive. S69 is not content-based. It does not regulate what websites say, only how they process children's data and design user interfaces. Supreme Court precedent makes it clear that laws targeting specific industries for non-expressive conduct are not unconstitutional. These sectoral laws are widely upheld. Opponents will claim Section 2449FA4 prevents websites from curating feeds unless users explicitly request content which infringes on their editorial judgment. S69 does not ban curation or personalization. It simply ensures personalization is driven by the user's affirmative choices, not manipulative defaults. Platforms can still organize content based on user interests and values like newsworthiness or popularity, fully preserving expressive functions recognized by the Supreme Court in Moody versus NetChoice. Opponents will claim the bill limits how users can communicate, barring contact unless it confirms state-approved settings. S69 does not prohibit communication. It empowers minors to decide who can connect with them. It does not require parental consent or block adults from connecting. It gives youth control via privacy-forward defaults. Unlike Utah's Reyes law, which required verifiable parental consent, S69 provides flexibility and autonomy. Opponents will claim any form of age verification chills protected speech and fails constitutional muster. S69 does not require age assurance. Businesses only need to act on actual knowledge or may choose to use privacy-protective age estimation methods approved by the Attorney General. It's an optional, privacy-sensitive approach, not an intrusive mandate. SCOTUS has never ruled against age assurance itself unconstitutional, only specific implementations that were overly burdensome or poorly tailored. Opponents will claim the duty of care is unconstitutionally vague, especially the clause about material disrupting speech. Unlike California's broader AADC, Vermont's S69 has a narrow and clear duty of care focused on data processing and design practices, not content. It cannot be enforced based on content alone. It applies only in serious cases of emotional distress, compulsive use, or discrimination, clearly defined harms that provide sufficient notice to businesses. Opponents will claim laws like California's AADC and Utah's Reyes have already been struck down. Vermont's will too. S69 was crafted with those rulings in mind. It avoids their mistakes, steers clear of content regulation, limits burden on speech, and ensures constitutionality through light touch, flexible provisions. Supreme Court precedent, including TikTok versus Garland and Moody, supports Vermont's regulatory authority, not motivated by viewpoint discrimination. Madam Speaker, let's not confuse constitutional rights with corporate entitlements. This bill doesn't tell companies what to say. It tells them they can't build platforms that exploit children by design for profit. That's not censorship, that's accountability. Industry argues that this law will chill speech, but that's a distraction. S69 was crafted precisely to avoid the legal pitfalls of other laws. It doesn't regulate content, it regulates conduct, like endless scroll, push notifications, and the harvesting of sensitive data from minors. That's not unconstitutional, that's common sense. Let me be clear, it is entirely constitutional to say that businesses must not build systems that knowingly harm kids. The First Amendment does not protect surveillance-based product design. It does not shield manipulation. It does not give companies the right to treat our children as raw material for ad revenue. And the argument that it's too hard to comply, that's not a legal concern. That's a business model problem. It's time to end the era where children's well-being is collateral damage in the pursuit of profit. Vermont doesn't wait, we lead. Let's pass this bill and prove that when it comes to protecting our kids, we don't back down, we step up. I urge you to vote yes on S69.
The question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Are you ready for the question? Member from Williston.
Oopsies. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of this bill and decided to do something I've never done before, which is speak without notes. I've done that lots of times, but not here. And the reason for that was because I care so much about this that I could talk for hours. And if I try to write it out, I worry that I miss something. I figured if I just if I was just following inspiration in this moment, then I would say exactly what I need to say. So it's sort of ironic that I'm going to ask you if I can quote Laura Marquez Garrett, who is an attorney for the Social Media Victims Law Center.
You may.
I will preface this quote by saying that, I'm sorry, I'm invading Marty's personal space. The Social Media Victims Law Center has been retained by over 4,000 children, families and children. On behalf of 4,000 children, they have filed more than 1,200 complaints. And most kids they represent are between the ages of 8 and 22. Currently, they have 9 victim plaintiffs in Vermont. They've filed 4 lawsuits and are in process with 5 other child victims in Vermont. Laura Marquez Garrett says, quote, "Virtually every member of our team is in trauma and suffers PTSD because of what we have seen, which is what these kids are seeing. I am struggling to make it through each day because these companies are killing children by design. By the end of this month, I will have personally worked on complaints and intake/investigation for 296 children who have died. And it didn't have to be that way. I have seen their data, their school records, their suicide videos posted to social media, all of it. It doesn't have to be this way. This industry has evaded regulation at the federal level through an outdated portion of the Communications Decency Act. They hide behind Section 230, and they do so to continue making trillions of dollars while hundreds and thousands of children die as a result of their products. I challenge any member in this body to name another type of product that would be harming children to this extent and still avoid regulation. It boggles the mind. It is so clearly profit-driven as to be embarrassing at this point to be an American and not have these regulations in place. So we have an opportunity as Vermonters to do what we can at a state level, absent the necessary federal action, to begin to regulate these companies and to send a very clear, constitutionally sound message that what they're doing is illegal and immoral. And I urge the members of this body to take a step today toward that responsibility, toward that care and compassion, to vote yes on S69.
The question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the comments from the members from Bradford and Williston, and simply to point out that Americans have First Amendment rights, algorithms do not.
Are you ready for the question? Member from Derby.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the comments from the member from South Burlington. I get the right town? Williston, excuse me, my apologies, Williston. I gave a step up speech last year at the Derby Junior High School, and I talked about the evils of our devices and urged the kids to put the devices down and walk away. I would like to see S69 go further and ban the use of these devices in schools, but I fully support S69 because there are predators out there. And for that, I urge the body in votes in support of S69. Thank you.
Member from Berry City.
Madam Speaker, I speak in support of S69, Age-Appropriate Design Code. This bill does a few things. It establishes a minimum duty of care for companies when they design digital platforms likely to be used by minors. It says they cannot create features that knowingly cause emotional harm, compulsive use, or discriminate against our children. It also ensures strict privacy defaults for minors, meaning no unsolicited messages from adults, no late-night push notifications, and no sketchy location tracking. If a child wants to share something, they must choose to do so, clearly and intentionally. The bill is about design, not content, about shaping the tools and default settings that children interact with when they log on. In short, Madam Speaker, this is a child protection bill, and I urge the body to vote yes and pass S69 to protect our children. Thank you.
The question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Are you ready for the question? Member from Coventry.
Madam Speaker, suicide, bullying, the inability to have discussions face to face, PTSD, mental health issues. This is what is facing our children in Vermont and around the nation. This bill is designed to take on the issues that these companies are creating in platforms. It is a product issue. It's not a First Amendment issue. If there's a manufacturer of car seats that happen to injure our infants, if we have manufacturers of toys that become choking hazards, do we not regulate that? We're not regulating the content. We're regulating the platforms. And in testimony that we received in our committee, we did not hear of any Vermont businesses that will be affected by this. And even if it was, should they not be held responsible? I think they should be. I think they need to be. And it's up to us to make sure that our Vermont children are protected. I really, truly urge you to vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Member from Colchester.
Madam Speaker, we are losing valuable time to help this generation of children and generations to come. I urge the body to act today and vote yes on this bill. It is the very least we can do to protect children that deserve our protection more than corporate profits.
Are you ready for the question? If so, will the clerk please call the roll?
Arsenault of Williston.
2 minutes. Can I see all House leadership at the podium, please? Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Will the House please come to order? I would like to remind members that we are in the middle of a roll call vote. Members and guests are prohibited from using computers, phones, or any type of electronic device. Please refrain from the passing of notes and conversations during a roll call. When the clerk calls your name, please answer in a loud and clear voice so the clerk can accurately record your votes. The question is, shall the House propose to the Senate to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Will the clerk please continue to call the roll?
Austin of Colchester. Bailey of Hyde Park. Bartholomew of Heartland. Bartley of Fairfax. Rebecca of Winooski. Byrong of Virgins. Bishop of Colchester. Black of Essex. Bloomley of Burlington. Boslin of Westminster. Bosch of Clarendon. Bootenberry City. Boyden of Cambridge. Brady of Williston. Brannigan of Georgia. Brown of Richmond. Burdett of West Rutland. Burke of Brattleboro. Burkhart of South Burlington. Burrows of West Windsor. Bird of Cabot. Campbell of St. Johnsbury. Canfield of Fairhaven. Carrie Duncan of Whitingham. Casey of Montpelier. Casey of Hubbardton. Chapin of East Montpelier. Charlton of Chester. Christie of Hartford. Chena of Burlington. Coffin of Cavendish. Cole of Hartford. Conlon of Cornwall. Cooper of Pownell. Corcoran of Bennington. Cordes of Bristol. Critchlow of Colchester. DeMar of Venusburg. Dickinson of St. Albans Town. Dobrovich of Williamstown. Dodge of Essex. Dolan of Essex Junction. Dolgan of St. Johnsbury. Donahue of Northfield. Duke of Burlington. Durfee of Shaftesbury. Eastus of Guilford. Emmons of Springfield. Feltus of Linden. Galfetti of Barrytown. Garifano of Essex. Goldman of Rockingham. Goodnow of Brattleboro. Ghostland of Northfield. Granning of Jericho. Greer of Bennington. Gregoire of Fairfield. Hengo of Berkshire. Harple of Glover. Harrison of Chittenden. Harvey of Castleton. Hedrick of Burlington. Higley of Lowell. Holcomb of Norwich. Hooper of Randolph. Hooper of Burlington. Houghton of Essex Junction. Howard of Rutland City. Holland of Rutland Town. Hunter of Manchester. James of Manchester. Kosenska of Burke. Keyser of Rutland City. Kimball of Woodstock. Klepner of Burlington. Kornheiser of Brattleboro. Krasnow, South Burlington. Labor of Morgan. Lally of Shelburne. Malone of South Burlington. Lamont of Morristown. LaRush of Franklin. Lipsky of Stowe. Logan of Burlington. Long of Newfane. Luno of St. Albans City. McGuire of Rutland City. Malay of Pittsford. Marcotte of Coventry. Maslin of Thetford. McCann of Montpelier. McCoy of Pulteney.
McFauna, Berrytown. McGill of Bridport. Mickless of Milton. Mahali of Calais. Minier of South Burlington. Morganella Milton. Morgan Emma Milton. Morris of Springfield. Morrissey of Bennington. Morrow of Weston. Rowicky of Putney. Nelson of Derby. Nielsen of Brandon. Nigro of Bennington. North of Ferrisburg. Noyes of Wolcott. Nugent of South Burlington. O'Brien of Tunbridge. Odie of Burlington. Oliver of Sheldon. Olson of Starksboro. Page of Newport City. Parsons of Newberry. I didn't hear that. Pezzo of Colchester. Pincenot of Dorset. Pouts of Heinsberg. Powers of Waterford. Thank you. Priestley of Bradford. Pritchard of Pollitt. Quimby of Linden. Rachelson of Burlington. Sakowitz of Randolph. Shia of Middlebury. Sheldon of Middlebury. Sibilia of Dover. Southworth of Walden. Squirrel of Underhill. Steady of Milton. Stevens of Waterbury. Stone of Burlington. Supernaut of Barnard. Sweeney of Shelburne. Taglovia, Corinth. Taylor of Milton. Tomlinson of Winooski. Toof of St. Edmunds Town. Torrey of Moortown. Walker of Swanton. Wazazak of Berry City. Waters Evans of Charlotte. Wells of Brownington. White of Waitsfield. White of Bethel. Winter of Ludlow. Wood of Waterbury. Yakavonia Morristown. Campbell of St. Johnsbury. Dobrovich of Williamstown. Donahue of Northfield. Hunter of Manchester. Niagara of Bennington. White of Bethel. And Winter of Ludlow.
For purpose of explanation, member from Williston.
Madam Speaker, S69 is a first step toward life-changing and life-saving regulation of products that are harmful by design. I dedicate my vote to the hundreds of children who have died as a result of its irresponsible design, and to the thousands who may be spared harm as a result of this bill.
Member from Winooski.
Madam Speaker, I'm voting yes because this is one of the single most important things that we can do to address the youth mental health crisis.
Member from Williston.
I voted yes for this bill because I will always vote for kids and families over big business. Through unregulated screens, social media, and now rapidly developing AI, we're running a massive uncontrolled experiment with our kids as the guinea pigs, and parents, teachers, and medical professionals know the results. Morally, this bill is the right thing to do, but also economically. The only economic interest that I know is being harmed currently is the Vermont property taxpayer as we continue to pay for dramatically increased mental health costs in our school budgets, conservatively at least $50 million just last year.
Member from Jericho.
S69 will protect Vermont's children from harmful features that are prevalent in today's social media platforms. They cause distress and anxiety in our youth and are damaging a generation of kids. We needed this law years ago. These protections will change the lives of future generations.
Member from Poultney.
Madam Speaker, I would have supported the Senate version of the bill. However, with the private right of action included and lawsuits in the other states still pending, I cannot support this bill.
And member from Bradford.
S69 is not a speech law, it's a safety law, and is carefully designed to ensure our kids have stronger protections without compromising constitutional rights. If big tech wants to litigate against kids' safety, let them. But let's be clear, Vermont stands on the right side of the Constitution and of history.
Member from East Montpelier.
Madam Speaker, may I explain my vote?
You may.
Protection of our children from the intentionally addictive designs of social media companies and the lack of federal regulation is long overdue. I dedicate my vote to all the children and parents who struggle with this every day.
Members, please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 133. Those voting no, 9. The ayes have it, and you have proposed to the Senate to amend the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Next is House Bill 209, which is an act relating to intranasal epinephrine in schools. The bill passed the Senate with a proposal of amendment that is printed in today's calendar. Member from Glover.
Madam Speaker, H209 is a bill to allow intranasal epinephrine to be administered in schools and passed out of the House unanimously on a voice vote March 20th. This bill accomplishes two outcomes. It allows the use of a new intranasal delivery system of epinephrine and better clarifies language to indicate that school nurses are in charge of authorizing school personnel to administer medication such as epinephrine. It came back from the Senate with a number of small changes. Rather than define the delivery methods of epinephrine, it speaks more generally to the delivery itself of epinephrine so that if new delivery methods are created in the future, we will not need a separate bill for each one. The committee took a straw poll and voted unanimously to concur with further instances of amendment, which will be taken next in the calendar.
The question is, the member from Glover moves that the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have concurred in the Senate proposal of amendment with further amendment thereto. Now we'll take up House Bill 222, which is an act relating to civil orders of protection. The bill passed the Senate with a proposal of amendment that is printed in today's calendar. Member from Williston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Senate made one technical addition to H222, which can be found on page 3619 of today's House calendar. If members recall, this bill addresses a number of statutes related to domestic violence and stalking. In the section dealing with relief from abuse proceedings, the Senate added a line clarifying that Rule 16 of the Vermont Rules of Family Proceedings, this is the rule that details the civil contempt process in family court, will be the guiding rule in cases of contempt resulting from failure to comply with an order to participate in a domestic violence accountability program. Our committee appreciated this specification and voted 902 on a straw poll to concur. We ask for the body's support.
The question is, shall the House concur in the Senate proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have concurred in the Senate proposal of amendment. Members, after conferring with all House leadership, we will now break for lunch and come back to finish the remainder of bills on the calendar or to address any business that has come over from the Senate. So the House will stand in recess until the fall of the gavel at 1 p.m.